Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining me. My name is Cédric Marin. I'm an immigration lawyer at Holthe Immigration Law. And today we're going to talk about permanent residence avenues, so ways to get permanent residence. We talk a lot about express entry. We have tons of content on express entry. So we're going to go over eligibility briefly, but I do want to talk to you about the Atlantic Immigration Program and the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot, which could be avenues for other individuals if, for example, you don't have a high enough CRS score and you want to get your permanent residence. So thank you so much for joining me. I realize that I am an hour late, so we try to schedule this for 9 a.m. London, UK time, and that's because I actually telework abroad. So I'm available for clients who are outside Canada who want to come to Canada to study, to work, or as a permanent resident. And if you're currently inside Canada, I'd love to help you in the mornings. Is the best time that's going to work for me. Um, I focus on various streams of immigration, and I would more than happy to be help to I'd be more than happy to help you out. So this is let's see the comments coming in. So we have uh, oops, I'm sure this is linked here. There we go. We have Akash Shak. He says, "Hey, what's up? Everything's good. How are you? How are you doing?" And he says, "Guess only I am awake." Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, like I mentioned, this is a unscheduled. We're an hour late, so I do apologize. I was helping clients with some really urgent matters, and so I figured I would prioritize that for our clients. All right, so let's get right to it. Let's go ahead and talk about the eligibility for express entry. So here we have the eligibility for express entry. Now, there's many ways to come to Canada, and a very well established way is through what's called express entry. So the idea behind express entry is if you meet certain conditions and you have a high enough score based on your education, your work experience, languages you speak, you can come to Canada um, as a permanent resident. So you would land to Canada and then you can study, you can work. You have to stay in Canada for a certain amount of time, but it is a popular avenue for a lot of people. So when we talk about express entry, we talk about eligibility, and then we talk about CRS points. So these are points that if you reach a certain number, you can immigrate to Canada, and we're going to talk about more of the points in a moment. But first, let's talk about eligibility. So if you're outside Canada, you're most likely going to be looking at the federal skilled workers. If you have Canadian work experience or Canadian education, you're most likely going to be looking at the Canadian experience class. So, what do we need to be eligible for express entry under the federal skilled workers? Well, here we have the various requirements that you must meet. So we have skilled work experience, language, education, and then we talk about proof of funds and admissibility. So let's get right to it. In terms of, you have to have 67 points to meet the eligibility. So we can actually take a look here at what are these 67 points, and these are the 6 factors that they're going to assess under the federal skilled workers. If you're Canadian experience class, there's different eligibility, so make sure you take a look at that. All right, so we need to get a maximum points of 28 points in French or English, right? And here we go. You need to get a minimum of a CLB 7, or if you have a second language, a minimum of a CLB 5 to get points. So here are how the points are assigned. So here are the points that you're going to receive based on your language level. Again, this is just eligibility, and here are the second official languages. The way that you do your language testing is you have to take an approved language test, very specific as to what tests you can take. And if we scroll down here at the bottom, they talk about what tests you need to take. So we'll just leave it at that, and let's continue. All right, now we talk about education. Let's talk about the if you went to school in Canada or if you went abroad. If you went abroad, this is again, if you're a federal skilled worker, you're abroad, you're outside Canada, you don't have any Canadian study or work experience, you're going to be looking to get a educational credential assessment. And again, very specific as to what this means, very specific procedures. But what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to look at what is the equivalent of your foreign degree in the Canadian system. And then you're going to get various points, and you need to have, various points in terms of education. You need to have a very minimum of a high school or a post-secondary institution. So this is the very minimum that you need to be eligible to apply. All right, so you can get points for your education, and then we talk about work experience. So federal skilled workers, you have various requirements. It has to be in a skilled position. So we're talking about position like being an accountant, a programmer, a lawyer, a manager. These are skilled positions, and you can look up your national occupational classification at the very bottom here. Now, I do want to say that these are actually going to be changing soon, and this is probably a good segue to go over to Whole Foods Immigration Law. This is our law firm, and you can actually go here to resources and blogs, and you can learn about some upcoming changes that are going to be happening. We'll just try to find the blog here. So there we go. So we've updated it in August. And in November 2022, there's going to be some changes to the positions that in the NOC classification. So they're going to go from a 5 skilled NOCs to a 6-tier system. And I just want to scroll down here again. We're going a little bit quickly, but let's take a look at it. What occupations are going to become eligible? So eligible, we're talking about occupations that were, lower skill like NOC C or NOC D that are now going to become eligible for express entry. So here are the most popular ones: nurse aide, patient service nurse aide, orderlies, and patient service associates, also known as personal support workers. All right, very interesting. We have elementary and secondary school teacher assistants, right? We have a few other positions in law enforcement and so on. And then here at the bottom, we have bus drivers, subway operators, transit operators, and transport truck drivers. These are going to be eligible for express entry, which means you can get points, you can become eligible, and possibly come to Canada as a permanent resident. There's going to be some changes as to occupations that are going to become ineligible under various streams. So obviously take a look at this as well. And so for express entry, performers, program leaders, and tailors, dressmakers are also going to become eligible. So some changes are going to be happening, but let's just go back here to our work experience. You need to have, at the very minimum, you're going to need to have work experience. It's going to vary on how many years. But if we go back here to the page, we're going to see that the work experience has to be at the very minimum of 1 year full-time work experience, 1 year continuous full-time work experience in a NOC A, O, A, or B. All right, so let's keep going down. Here to talk about finding your national occupation classification. And so I just want to go back again. We're going quickly here, but here's the NOC screen that we're at, and let's type in programmers. Software engineers and designers. This is a very popular one, so let's take a look at what you need to meet to get this NOC here. All right, so let's go to the NOC website. And here, let's enter our NOC, and let's take, we're in job title, let's search by NOC code. So this is super, super important for express entry. Some applications get rejected on this. And here we go. Here's the NOC code. Here's what's called the lead statement. And at the very bottom here, we have the main duties. You have to meet at least 75% of these main duties, right? So make sure that you have a reference letter from your employer, a contract, you have pay stubs that clearly demonstrate how you meet this work experience. NOCs are super important. All right, let's continue. So we have, quick recap, you do language testing, right? You have, depending on your level of English or French, you have a certain amount of points. Second language, you also did testing for your second language. You obtained your educational credential assessment, right? We looked at the work experience. You found your NOC. You have the supporting documents for the NOC, right? And depending on how many years you worked, you're going to get some points. Again, we're talking about eligibility. Just to apply, just to be eligible, this is going to be the point system. Obviously, the more points, the more years of experience, the more points, it's better, but you have to meet 67. All right, age is a factor. So you come to Canada. Canada essentially wants people for eligibility between 18 to 35. And when we talk about, we'll go more into the points for the CRS score, but again, just eligibility, you start losing points after the age of 35. All right. Let's continue. Arranged employment, very specific. Again, arranged employment has a specific legal definition. Not every job offer is going to be in arranged employment. So let's take a look here at what is arranged employment, and it's going to be a labor market impact assessment. So this is needed to have a, so here we go. You need to a positive labor market impact assessment. In short, your employer is going to demonstrate to the Canadian government that there's no PR, no permanent resident or Canadian that can do the work. you have to advertise the job, they've filled some forms, they have to formally apply, a very specific process. And if they're successful, you're going to get an LMIA and you're going to get arranged employment in Canada. So just a job offer from an employer saying, hey, Cédric, come work, for my company. We'd love to have you is not sufficient to obtain the points here for arranged employment. So very specific definition for arranged employment. All right, let's keep going down. You can read about the scenarios. Again, just a quick overview. Here we talk about adaptability. You're going to get more points. Adaptability, it's a factor of, foreign work experience and language. You get some bonus points, if you will, for adaptability. So here they talk about working in Canada or studies in Canada, but they also have, let's take a look here. Let's take a look here. Language, past studies in Canada, past work, and so on. You're going to see that when we talk about adaptability for the CRS score, it's a little bit different. In any event, here's a brief overview of eligibility, and if you're eligible to apply, you then have to go ahead and make sure that you meet the minimum requirements. So again, 1 year in a NOC A and a NOC O, A or B, you meet the lead statement, right? You have the main duties as well. We have the language tests, you have your educational credential assessment. If you're outside Canada, you also have to provide a proof of funds. This is going to depend on how many people are inside your family members. So if you're married, right, if you have married and you have children, this is the minimum amount, minimum funds that you have to prove, and you have to provide a letter, and the letter has to have the average balance for the last 6 months. So usually what we're going to see is we're going to see a letter, confirming the assets and liabilities of a client, and then we're also going to ask them to provide the last 6 months of bank statements to show that they met the sufficient funds for a period of time, right? That they had the minimum funds for a period of time. With some of our clients, we deal with gifts, we deal with loans. When we're talking about express entry, it can't be a loan. It has to be an irrevocable gift that is being made to you for the sufficient funds, or from employment experience, you've saved up this money or through investments. So proof of funds, and then we talk about admissibility. So we're talking about, if you have a serious criminality, if you've been accused, if you have driving while impaired, there's a lot of inadmissibilities in general. If you've never been in the back of a police car, you weren't involved in other inadmissible activities, you should be fine. All right, so again, very brief overview of express entry eligibility and the points. Now, how does it work in terms of the points? So let's take a look at the ministerial instructions for express entry. Actually, you know what? I think it'd be more helpful to talk here about the CRS calculator. So as I mentioned about it, for express entry, you need to have a certain amount of points. And what's going to happen is if you have a certain amount of points, you're going to be called and you're going to get an express entry. So let's take a look here at the rounds of invitation. The last round of invitation was August 3rd, and you had to have a score of 533 to receive an invitation to apply. So you have to create an express entry profile, and then you need to answer all those questions about your work experience and so on. And if you meet a certain amount of points, they're going to send you an invitation to apply, and then they are going to ask you to submit your documents for more information, and that's when you actually apply for permanent residence. So we can see here that the last draw was 533, and we can see here the CRS scores, the amount of people that are currently in the pool. So people who create a profile are added to a big pool, and we can see here the different points of different individuals. So I actually had a question by Ferrari, who asks, I have a CRS score of 472. What is the best option for me? So once you go through the eligibility, you create your profile and you answer all these questions, it's going to tell you your CRS score, and you're going to be added to the pool, and essentially you're waiting for a draw. The draws right now are happening every 3 weeks for individuals, and the CRS score is actually quite high because of COVID delays. All right, so 472, we can see here that you're inside of this 18,000 individuals. And so ahead of you, we have 9,000, we have 5,300, and then we have another 9,000 at the very top. Now they took 2,000 people on August 3rd, so after this. So we deduct here 2,000 people. So roughly, it's hard to tell exactly where you are, but roughly we could say that there's about 20 to 30 to 40,000 people ahead of you. And if they're only taking 2,000 individuals every 2 to 3 weeks, if you look at the previous rounds here, every 2 to 3 weeks, we're probably looking at anywhere between 6 months to 12 months before the CRS score actually goes down to 472. So in this period of waiting, make sure your passport is valid. Make sure your educational credential assessment, which is valid for 5 years, make sure that that's valid as well. Your language test might expire, so they're only valid for 2 years. Make sure that in terms of police certificates, that you're going to be able to obtain police certificates and medical exams. Look more into this and make sure that your profile is ready. If you're missing points, right, there's a few things you can do. So if you want to increase your CRS score, there's a few things that you can do. First, if you speak French, you're going to receive additional points. You go up to 50 points for learning French, right? So in this case, if you go to 472 plus 50 points, you could be looking at around 520. In other words, we can expect to have an ITA received a little bit quicker than the 472. We talked about arranged employment. So if you do find a valid job offer with an LMIA, you're going to receive, and depending on the work category, but usually you're going to receive 50 additional points as well. Now we also have provincial nominee programs where you can receive 600 points. Provincial nominee programs, each province has their own program. There's eligibility, you have to create a profile as well. But in short, if you create your profile, receive an invitation to apply through the PNP programs, provincial nominee programs, you can receive up to 600 points. All right, let's head back here. So you're eligible for express entry, you've gotten all your language tests and all that done, you've created your profile, and now you're waiting for a draw. As we talked about, there's ways to increase your score, but in short, as short as we can put it, this is a very short overview of Express Entry. Obviously, we help our clients with Express Entry, so if you're interested in speaking with a lawyer, head on over to our website here, Whole Immigration Law, and we help clients fulfill their dreams of immigrating to Canada. And the way we work is that we help you review all your documents, all the forms, to be able to apply for Express Entry. So here on our website, at the very top right, go to speak with a lawyer, and to speak with me, scroll down to the bottom, and here you're going to find the areas that I focus on: Express Entry, work permits including extensions, litigation, and rejected appeals. This is really what I focus on, and you can go ahead here to speak with me to book a consultation. It all starts with a consultation. If you need help completing forms, if you're wondering about the best option to apply for Express Entry, go ahead on our website. I'd love to speak with you about that. All right. We also have Mark at the very bottom, and we have my colleague Chanel, who's also an immigration lawyer, and we have Alicia as well, who's another immigration lawyer. So here at our law firm, you work with an immigration lawyer, you don't work with a consultant, and we don't work with law clerks or someone else in the middle. Through the consultation, you meet with us, we book another call if you retain us to help you out, where we exchange documents, and you work one-on-one with a lawyer. There's no one in the middle that you deal with. So we're working with someone that's specialized, someone that has experience in this. All right, very briefly, I do want to talk about if we head over here, so we have Express Entry, which is again a very popular way to come to Canada, but we also have, where is it? There we go. We also have two other programs that I just want to talk about briefly. The Atlantic Immigration Program. Now, why is this important? Well, let's take a look here on how it works. You can apply so here on the employer side, but let's take a look at how it works for an individual. So if you're an individual, let's take a look here, find a candidate, meet the requirements. We're still under employers. So there we go. So who can take part? How can you take part in the program? So this applies for individuals who are both inside Canada and outside Canada. So to be eligible, again, there's minimum requirements you have to meet, but here we talk about the valid work experience. So you need to have at least 1 year of experience, a full-time work experience in a skilled occupation, and here they actually accept NOCs. So other jobs that are less high skill. So here we have industrial butchers, long-haul truckers, food and beverage servers. International graduates, so those who have studied inside Canada have a different requirement. There's also educational requirements, but in short, it's another avenue to permanent residence if you want to immigrate in the Atlantic program. You need to get a job offer from an employer, not an LMIA. They have their own process to go through for a job offer, but if you're interested in Atlantic immigration, right, so we're talking about four different provinces. If you're right here, New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Labrador, Nova Scotia, and PI, take a look at them. But if you're able to find a job offer and the employer, it's an employer-driven process, they have to apply, they have to give you an endorsement, is another avenue to permanent residence, right? So if your CRS score is too low and you're interested in coming to Canada, I definitely recommend taking a look at the Atlantic Immigration Program. Again, this is a very short overview. We have experience with this with our clients. I'm actually working with a few clients right now for the Atlantic Immigration Program, but the very first step would be to make sure that you're eligible, contact employers, and try to find a job, a qualifying job. All right, let's take another look here. Oops, sorry, YouTube. Take another look here. We have, what I want to talk to you about is the rural and northern immigration pilot. So this is a pilot program. And in short, individuals who are inside Canada that reside in rural and northern communities can apply through this program. This is not an employer-driven program, which means that the employer is doing everything, or mostly everything. It's actually a community-driven program, which is excellent for small communities that are interested in getting individuals to go work inside their communities. So again, check the eligibility to see if you're eligible. You're going to have to get an eligible job offer, right? And once you have it, you have to apply for a recommendation by the community. Now, let's take a look at the participating communities. So North Bay, Sudbury, Timmins, Sault Ste. Marie, Thunder Bay, Brandon, Alton, Moose Jaw, Claresholm Home, and Vernon, and after the West Kootenays. So these are all community-driven programs. Each program is going to have their own requirements. And let's take a look here at Sudbury. So Sudbury has their own requirements. The deadline has been extended this year, which is fantastic. Again, the very first thing that you need is usually going to be a job offer. So let's go take a look. So here it says a candidate may only apply if they have secured an offer of employment in the eligible occupation. Here are the eligible occupations. So again, if you're inside Canada, your CRS score is a little bit too low, or even if you're outside Canada, take a look at the rural and northern immigration program. Look at the communities to see what they need. Again, one of the big steps is going to be a job offer, and the second step is going to be applying for the community recommendation. They actually have to approve you and say, okay, we're endorsing this candidate to come to our community. We're going to essentially, in a way, sponsor them to come inside the community. So another avenue that's not express entry, which might be beneficial for you. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, we were a little bit late this morning, but let's get straight to the questions. All right. So Amrit, popular individual, always on our podcast here, live Q&As. Nice to see you. Says, good afternoon. I have a bachelor's in engineering and master's in management. If I'm claiming engineering NOC, do I also need a bachelor in engineering assessed also? So excellent question. So let's flip over here and let's go. Oops, where did the chat go? And again, I apologize if you hear construction. I'm having construction in my building, so I'll do my best to minimize the noise. But let's get right to it. All right, NOC, ESDC. There we go. Let's view the matrix. Oops, no, not the matrix. We want to find the NOC, ESDC. All right. So let's take a look here. Engineer. Oops, job title. I don't know it by heart. Let's see what we have for engineer. This is maybe too wide. So we have engineer managers. Let's scroll down. What type of engineer are you, Emrit? Electrical engineer, chemical engineer, computer engineer, claiming engineer, engineering and master's in management. So listen, unfortunately I don't know what type of engineer you are. Let's say civil engineering technologist. Actually, it's maybe not technician. Sorry, let's just try to find one that can maybe apply to more people. All right, so let's take computer engineering. So here we have, again, the lead statement, and here we have the main duties. So again, you need to meet about 75% of these main duties, and provide a letter of reference, provide a contract, provide your pay stubs, show that you worked in this occupation. And then here for the main duties, for the lead statement, make sure that you also meet the lead statement. right? At the very bottom here, we have employment requirements, which talk usually about what degree you need to have. However, this is just an indication of what that you should have. There's no requirement for you to actually have this educational requirement. We again only focusing on the main duties and the lead statement. Example of job title, again, example, it's not mandatory. Your job title can be different. Main duties, for sure meet it at least 75%. And here employment requirements, again, it's an indicator, it's an example. This is not for when it comes to Canada, there's no educational requirements when it comes to the express entry. And in fact, we can actually confirm this if we go over to the ministerial instructions, which is like the legalese that the minister has made in terms of the instructions, and we can actually look for, sorry, I'm just trying to think about a good word here that we could search for. Main duties, all right? So so here we're talking about the Canadian work experience. It's going to be the same for foreign work experience. Let's try to find it here. Canadian work experience factor. Yeah, so foreign work experience. And if we take a look here, so to get points, you must have a 4-digit code. So you got to look up the NOC, right? You have to have performed the actions in the lead statement. We talked about this, right? So again, make it so easy for the visa officer to look at this and say, yeah, I agree, right? Explain it, have letters of reference, pay stubs, contracts, make it super easy for them to say, yes, they have the supporting document, yes, they're inside of this NOC. All right. The second part here is going to be that you must have performed the action described in the statement, blah, 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 as well as a substantial number of the main duties. Substantial, right? At least 75% like I talked about. But you'll see here, there's no educational requirements when we're talking about the NOC. There's no example of title. So, excellent question, and it is a little bit confusing, but if you're claiming the NOC engineering, you do not have to get a bachelor in engineering as well. Whether or not you have to get it assessed, right, an educational credential requirement, credential assessment, sorry. We talk about who needs it. It's usually going to be your highest degree. So let's flip over here in terms of who needs it. And here you need it for, let's just confirm it, right? In most cases, you only need an assessment for your highest level of education. So if you have a master's degree, only get the master's degree assessed. And that's because you're only going to get points essentially for the master's degree, which is going to be higher than the other types. So if it's your highest education, you need to get the master's degree assessed. In your case, the bachelor's in engineering, you don't have to get it assessed in most cases. Again, this is just legal information. If you want legal advice, book a consult so we can look into more details as to what is happening. So there we have it. And again, for the NOC, again, lead statement, main duties, no requirement for education, no requirement for the actual title. All right. Let's find our next question here. Axel says bonjour Cédric, donc bonjour Axel, je suis un franco-ontarien, donc je peux m'exprimer aussi en français, je peux aussi donner des services juridiques en français, donc si ça vous intéresse de venir au Canada et présenter une demande en français, ça me ferait plaisir d'en discuter avec vous, donc il faut aussi aller sur notre site web en anglais et prendre un rendez-vous avec moi. Spider-Man, hi Cédric, Spider again from Melbourne, just saying hi. Hi Spider, thanks for joining us. Again, I telework abroad, so if you're abroad, it's a fantastic time to join us. All right. CF says, I'm planning to land in Toronto, however, I'll be transiting through Montreal Airport. Will that be an issue? So when you're going to be going through, again, it depends on the airline, depending how you have your flight set up. It depends on what's going to be happening in terms of, are you going to be going into Montreal? Are you going to be not crossing customs? Listen, generally speaking, you're going to be truthful and honest about all your questions. It's not going to cause any problems. You're assuming you have your confirmation of permanent residence, assuming it's still valid, assuming that you are taking a connecting flight. If you don't have to go through, you're going to have to most likely cross through customs in Montreal. You're going to tell the officer you're here with your confirmation of permanent residence, and then you're going to have to most likely go to secondary, where they're going to talk more about completing the forms, providing you with a copy of the forms, and so on. So you might actually, in your case, I'm pretty sure you're going to be actually landing in Montreal and going through customs in Montreal. Again, just general legal information. I don't know how your flights are set up, and I don't know what is going to be happening, but you're going to be transiting and entering Canada in Montreal and taking a domestic flight to Toronto. So you're going to be going through, essentially landing in Montreal. All right. So that says I will get married in December and January, which will be after my acknowledgement of receipt. What can we prove as proof to support our case or prove our relationship is genuine? Almost 3 years together. So excellent question. And if we actually go into, we can actually take a look at and how to do this. So you're going to be looking to add them to your current PR application. And now this only applies if it's after you've actually applied for permanent residence. Just trying to pull up the page here. Sorry, just give me a moment. Just trying to pull this up. So when we talk about, so usually in terms of proving the relationship, you usually find this in terms of common law partners where they're not actually married.
8 years on this,
and they don't have any more. They're not actually married, and so they have to prove that they're cohabitation for 1 year. However, when you're going to be adding a spouse to your permanent residence application, you're going to be updating IRCC web form. You're going to be providing with a marriage certificate, and you can actually have a letter of explanation explaining how you've met. You can provide, joint bank accounts. You can provide a letter from both partners. You can provide various documents. But in your case, you see almost 3 years together. So my question for you would be, at the time that you applied for permanent residence, were they listed as a spouse? Were you common law? Did you indicate that you were engaged? What did you list them as in your permanent residence application if you were living together in a common law relationship? If you were not living together before your marriage, right, they would not be included at the time that you applied for your PR. So you would need to update IRCC with the marriage certificate, a letter of explanation explaining their relationship and when you got married. But sorry, I'm just trying to find the actual specific page. The specific page. There's a specific page that I'm trying to look for. Sorry, just give me a moment here. And what I'm interested for, here we actually flip over. What I'm interested for is called the program deliver instructions. So those are instructions that visa officers receive to process files, and we're actually able to take a look at them. So again, I'm going to assume here, it doesn't say, but I'm going to assume that it's going to be express entry. And I'm going to assume that you're applying as a federal skilled worker. Again, I'm not sure, but let's go take a look for the federal skilled workers. You've applied on or after 2015. And then let's take a look here at review creating the pool, electronic application, right? This is what I presume you did. You applied online, and here we talk about supporting documents. We've talked about, at the time that you apply, you have to have all the supporting documents. There's a lock-in date, and I'm just trying to find there's a part that talks about the procedures as it relates to changes to your express entry. So there we go. Thank you. So again, we're under the operational instructions, permanent residence, express entry overview. And if you have an express entry application and you want to see what the visa officers are going to be doing, take a look at these very helpful requirements. And so we're going to talk about changes in circumstances declared in an electronic application for permanent residence. Let's take a look down. Let's keep scrolling. Here we're going to talk about birthdays, misrepresentations, changes in circumstances declared after an electronic application for permanent residence has been submitted. So this is your case, right? So after it's submitted, an applicant essentially cannot be refused cannot be refused due to change in circumstance unless, right, the change occurred before the applicant submitted their EAPR. So we talked about the case where you might have been common law living with your partner before marriage. However, I also understand that's not the case for a lot of individuals to get married and then they live together. So just to keep in mind, you can't get married before your permanent residence and then update it after. This could be a change in circumstance, right? Where they could lead to being refused, or if you no longer meet the minimum program eligibility. Again, we talked about the beginning of the video about eligibility. So if you're interested, go take a look at eligibility at the beginning of the video. All right, let's keep going down. So we talk about if an applicant marries before submitting their EAPR, but informs IRCC of the marriage only after submitting their EAPR, the marriage can be taken into account for the assessment of the of Article 11.2. So we talked about this, right? If you got married before, but you didn't declare it, and now you're declaring it after, they can actually reassess your whole PR application. All right. However, right, if an applicant marries after they submit their EAPR, then informs IRCC of the marriage cannot be taken into account as part of a Section 812 assessment. However, the change in circumstance may affect the applicant still meets the program requirements. See below for details. So I encourage you to read more about the changes in family composition and how it can actually impact your application. Again, this is the nitty-gritty stuff, but take a very close look at it. You can even close a look at the law, the Immigration and Refugee Protection Regulations, hosted by the Department of Justice, which talks more about. This is actually where everything. So let's go to table of contents. This is where everything sets out the actual law. Then IRCC creates program delivery instructions. They create checklists. They create instructions. They create web pages, right? But this is the actual law that tells you, all the various requirements, family class applications, refugees, sponsorships, visas and whatnot. In any event, if you need help with this, again, head on over to our website, Healthy Immigration Law. At the very right, you can speak with the lawyer. You just scroll down. Oh, we have our colleague Alicia. We have Chanel, and if you scroll down here at the bottom, you have myself. Here at the very bottom, obviously we do assist a lot of clients with express entry. It's my pleasure to work with you. Put a consult here at the very bottom. All right. That's quite a detailed answer, but yeah, the long answer to your question is, the short answer to your question is, provide obviously the marriage certificate, a letter of explanation, how you met, how the relationship has developed. You can provide more evidence if you want, like photos or joint bills and whatnot. And then you're going to also have to get them, your spouse is going to have to be examined for immigration purposes. We're talking about a medical check, we're talking about biometrics, we're talking about a security clearance, like a background check as well, for your spouse. So it might delay your application a little bit, but this is the proper way to do it, to get them added into your permanent residence application. All right. Let's find our next answer. So Kira says, once you officially become a permanent resident, do you have to move to Canada straight away? Can you wait a year and still maintain status? All right, Kira, excellent question. So when you receive your permanent residence, so we're going to assume you're abroad, you're outside Canada, and you've applied to the federal skilled workers. And now you've had your express entry, you had your invitation to apply, you submitted all your documents, you receive your acknowledgement of receipt, you might have updated your profile, and then you receive your confirmation of permanent residence. On the actual confirmation of permanent residence, the expiry date is most likely going to be linked to your medical exam. Medical exam are only valid for 1 year. So assuming that I had my medical exam in March of this year, and now I receive my confirmation of permanent residence, your confirmation of permanent residence is going to expire when the medicals expire. So it's going to expire in March, in my case, in March 2023. So you must come to Canada before March 2023. And they can't extend it. They're very strict with this date. So don't book a flight on 2 days before you're supposed to come to Canada. Book it a few weeks before, even a month before at the very latest. I would definitely recommend this approach. So look at the piece confirmation of permanent residence. There's going to be an expiry date. Take a look at it and come to Canada. My advice is at least a month before if your flight gets canceled or whatnot. Obviously, as a permanent resident, you have to have a permanent intent to come to Canada, to either work, study, to live in Canada. You can't just obtain your permanent residence. Well, generally speaking, you can't obtain your permanent residence, take a flight back to your country, never have a permanent intent to settle inside Canada. Some clients, what they will do is they'll come to Canada for 2-3 months, 2-3 weeks, find a place. Might look at a few places to rent. Consider, for example, doing your PR application inside Canada, be looking for a job, and then go back to their country for a month or two and finalize the move, and then come back to Canada, right? So it's totally up to you on how you want to proceed. I definitely recommend that you have your PR card before you leave Canada, that your TRV is valid. There are a little few things you can look into, but generally speaking, to answer your question, there's going to be expiry date on your confirmation of permanent residence, and you should strongly consider coming to Canada at least a month before. All right, IRB Fox says, do you need to submit proof of PR application payment when you complete the application? If so, how? Great. So this is a great question. Let's take a look at IRCC payments. So you definitely do need to pay. There's two different fees for permanent residents. So let's talk about these two fees. We usually recommend that you pay both at the time that you apply. And the reason for it, so let's take a look here at the fee list. All right, so sorry, I have bad allergies. Let's take a look here. I've been talking a lot, but let's take a look here at.
And I really want to change jobs.
The permanent residence fees. So if you apply for permanent residence, at the time you apply, the very minimum you need to pay your application fee. This is $850, and then you're gonna have to pay your right of permanent residence fee before you get your permanent residence. And if you just pay one fee, what's going to happen is, in the processing your application, they're going to send you an email and they're going to ask you to pay, or a notification, and they're going to ask you to pay the second fee before you get your permanent residence. So generally speaking, we advise our clients to minimize delays, right? To pay both of these fees at the time of your application, and then you don't have to worry about the fees. If you withdraw your application by web form, if you withdraw your application, you can ask for a refund of the fees if they haven't started processing your application. In any event, we definitely recommend you apply for both fees before. All right, now it comes to the question of how do you apply. In some cases, right, so if you apply online, you're going to be most likely be able to pay the fees online in the actual portal in your IRCC account yourself. However, the other option is if you have, sometimes you might have a box that says payment. So let's go to fee payment, IRCC. So you can pay your fees online. And again, there's two ways that you can. So if you're applying by paper, if you want to upload them for some applications, you're going to have to include the fee payment. So let's take a look here. So there's two options to help choose the fees. If you already know which ones you want to pay, you can go ahead and just scroll down here. You're paying for an application or a submit. Let's just put no here to see the fee list. And so here we have the different fees. For your case, you want the PR application. So let's take a look at, again, a lot of different programs. It depends on how you're applying. Let's just pick here that can apply to a lot of people. Let's go Express Entry. And here we have the fees. So here you would put, one fee for yourself, and after, depending on how many dependent children you have, and after the biometrics, if you haven't already done your biometrics, you're going to have to do them. And two or more people, maximum fee for family of two or more. So there we go. So in our case, we have 4 people for partner. There we go. So here we're going to put, there we go. Whoops. So here we only want to pay one family fee, and then you can go ahead and submit, and you can enter your payment information and pay. So you have to actually make a separate account to pay fees. What's going to happen is you're going to receive a receipt from IRCC that says you've paid the fees. There's going to be a barcode at the top. All right. So now you want to actually include it in your application. So if you're applying on paper, you're going to go ahead and print the receipt included in your application. And if not, you can actually go ahead, if you're paying the additional fees for an application, follow the instructions we sent to your account. So as I mentioned, in some cases you can actually apply online, and sometimes depending on the application, you're actually going to have to upload a receipt that you paid the fees. You can log in anytime to view the receipt. We're not going to go there, but in any event, you can pay the fees inside your account. If you're able to, again, I recommend you pay both fees. And if not, if they're asking you to upload a receipt, or if you have to upload a receipt, you'd pay the fees, you get your receipt, go to your account, and then upload the receipt, upload and submit the fees inside your account. So there we go, IRB Fox. All right. Our next question here. Amrit says, man, you even know that I never miss any lives. At this point, I really should set up an appointment with you. Just getting some docs in order. It shouldn't take more than 10 to 12 days. Well, Amrit, as I mentioned, this is what we do full time, is help clients with express entry, with PRs and whatnot. And I think we have a lot of value for clients who are not sure if they want to come to study or come on a work permit. They might have other options to a PR through a spousal sponsorship because they're in a relationship with a married or in common law relationship with someone who's a Canadian or PR. We might deal with cases where an employer is very supportive to get them a labor market impact assessment, but how can we make sure that you continue having a status, you get your points for the CRS? This is essentially what we specialize in, is helping clients. And we also help clients with rejected visa applications, rejected PR applications. If you head over to our website, I recently wrote a blog about visa reconsiderations. So this is something for free that you can do by web form. And it talks about how to prepare a good reconsideration request. So if there's an error in your application and you want to essentially argue this with IRCC, we talk about what are the various avenues for a reconsideration request. This is very informal, but here's a very detailed blog on how you can make a reconsideration request. We also have options to actually go to the federal court and seek a judicial review. In other words, you're compelling IRCC to take certain actions, whether it's reviewing your visa application once again when you're dealing with a rejection. So it's a formal process where we go to federal court. We argue for you as to what mistakes the visa officer made. Again, I would strongly recommend to get a lawyer since it can get quite complicated quite quickly. All right, heading back to our live Q&A, let's look for our next question here. Again, trying to pick questions that can apply to a lot of people. We don't necessarily answer them in order of okay, this in like the first come first serve. There's also some questions here. For example, can a PR holder apply for Nexus program for U.S. visa waiver? I mean, unfortunately, I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer, so we focus on immigrating to Canada. We focus on helping our clients, prepare strong, correct applications. So unfortunately, like some questions we can't answer. PR holder apply for Nexus program. I'm not qualified to give advice on Nexus programs or more broadly immigration in the United States. I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer. Another question, can a PR holder find a job easily if he pays a recruitment agency? Do you think they are worth it, or would it make a difference? Again, the LMIA, we talked a lot about these videos, but the LMIA, labor market impact assessments or job offers are employer driven. They're responsible for giving you the job offer. There's certain requirements they have to meet. You cannot pay for a job offer. You cannot pay for an LMIA. You cannot reach an agreement to give half your wages if you come to Canada and you work. These are all illegal. You are not allowed to do this. The way it works is an employer essentially has a business need. They want to hire a Canadian or PR and they can't, and then they turn to LMIA, and then they turn to providing job offers. I would not recommend a recruitment agency that promises to get you a job offer, promises a labor market impact assessment. They want a few $1,000s. They want to cut your salary. That is illegal. Do not do it. It is not a proper way to come to Canada. It's going to cause you a lot of headaches. And we're not just talking about Canada, but we're talking about immigrating to another country. There's information sharing agreements with the United States, with other countries, where they're going to be able to see what happened with your Canadian immigration applications. So definitely don't recommend this. All right, let's keep looking for our next question here. Axel has a question here. It says, for the federal skilled workers Outland application, my wife is the principal applicant. We have a bank account only for proof of funds. She will give her bank statements in work experience. She will give her bank statements and work experience part. Should I put my bank stats also? Have a great day, Cédric. So let's take a look here at, sorry, let's just take a look here, just changing screens at proof of funds. Let's take a peek here. So proof of funds, skilled immigrants, express entry. So you're right, Axel, you do have to prove your funds because you're a federal skilled worker, and you're going to see inside your account there's going to be a little box to prove your funds. All right, let's keep going. You don't have to have a proof of funds if you have, in the Canadian Experience class, or if you have a valid job offer with the LMIA. And how much money do you need? So here I'm going to assume that you're just a family of two, so you have to prove at least 16,570. And then what we accept as proof, so if your spouse is coming with you, so again, you can count money that you have together in a joint account. So my question, so you say, should I put my bank stats also? Have a great day, Cédric. So you should put your bank stats if your spouse alone doesn't meet the
I know this sounds crazy.
Proof of funds. So if you don't meet the 16,000, and again, there's various restrictions on, not restrictions, but there's ways that they calculate this funds required. So you can't have the value of your house, right? You can't have, let's say, gold just sitting at home. You have to have, so here we go. Can't use equity on real property as a proof of settlement funds. It can't be borrowed, right? So it has to be money that you obtain through employment or an irrevocable gift being made by someone. And here we go. So if your spouse is coming with you, so you can definitely provide your own bank statements. What I'd recommend is you actually do this as well. Get a letter from your bank for assets and liabilities, right? How much money you owe, how much money you have. And then I would definitely recommend also the average balance for the past 6 months. You're going to prove this with bank receipts. And what I would do is we usually recommend for clients, again, make it so easy for people for the immigration officer to look at your file and say, yeah, they got the proof of funds. How are you going to do this? Well, what I would recommend is to go ahead and create a letter of explanation where you have you explain it. You say, listen, me and my partner have X amount of funds, right? Please see, my bank statements. Please see this letter. You will see that this is in cash and whatnot. If there's like a big chunk of money coming in from selling a house or from a family or friend, I would strongly recommend that you explain it. How did you get this, $100,000 deposit in your account? What is it, right? So again, make it super easy for the visa officer. If you're selling a house, you have $100,000 that just came into your bank account. Provide, for example, a purchase and sale agreement for the house. Provide, agreements that you've sold a house to show where the money is coming from is going to be super important, right? So this is what I recommend you do. And so for your question, Axel, if you don't meet the proof of funds for yourself, you and your spouse, I would strongly recommend that, you include your own bank statements. All right. All right. Abu Muhammad says, I just have a question. The postgrad work permit extension application, I paid the fees twice. I paid in advance and attached the receipt and pay when I finish the application. What do I do? So Abu Muhammad, you can request a refund for the fees. So request refund, and they're going to recommend that you actually submit a web form. So let's take a look here at what they recommend on the Q&A here. So ask for a refund. So here under application, pay your fees, and then select ask for a refund. How you ask for a refund depends on how you paid, how you applied and whatnot. It can take up to 8 weeks. So how did you apply? So it was IRCC. You paid directly. So in your case, you applied, let's say you just applied online. I paid using IRCC's payment service and attached a receipt to my online application. And then you can ask and then you can follow here the instructions. We're gonna have more information. But look here, how to request a refund if you have not automatically been refunded, send it to your account. go to my receipts, find the correct receipt list, get receipt to view, and select refund request. So what I'd actually do is do this request for the ones that you attached in your application, and you paid it at the end, right? So you can even so I would do this, request a refund for the IRCC payment that you requested, and then you can also make a web form explaining the situation. Saying, okay, listen, I just want to be very clear here. I paid the fees in the application. These are the correct fees, right? However, I also paid on the IRCC payment program, and I've asked for a refund of these second fees. Please note that I've already paid the full fees inside my IRCC account. This refund for the payment on the IRCC online service is because I paid the fees twice by accident. So being upfront about it, explaining and requesting the fees, there we have it. All right. Let's try to find our next question here. Again, trying to find questions that apply to everyone. Some questions, I don't always want to go back and say speak to a lawyer. I don't always want to say we can't answer it. So, or if it's a very specific question for legal advice, again, we're not going to be answering it. All right, let's take a look here. Let's see here. So we have a question here from Dikirula Ayodeji Abubakar. He says, hello, bro. I have an invitation letter to conference in Quebec. What are the major documents I need? So we specialize in, well, we are licensed to provide legal advice as lawyers for federal immigration law, which means everything outside of Quebec. So I am not competent or licensed to provide legal advice for Quebec. So unfortunately, I can't help you. I'd recommend that if you want to speak with a Quebec lawyer, you can actually go on the Barreau du Québec. They have the Barreau du Québec is the Law Society of Quebec, and you can actually go ahead and find a lawyer. They have a lawyer directory, and we're just going to go to it right now, and you can find a lawyer who can assist you with your immigration to Quebec. So go on Barreau du Québec, find a lawyer, and speak with a Quebec immigration lawyer. I'm sorry, but I cannot help you. All right. Sean says, can one retain your services with a collaborative review model for postgraduate work permit application? Absolutely, Sean. So it'd be our pleasure to help you for the postgraduate work permit application. It may seem quite simple when you look at the website to look at the different categories for the postgraduate work permit extension. However, it gets quite complicated when we're talking about your temporary resident status, how, when does your passport expire, how to get the full 18 months, what's the best strategy to apply. So we'd love to help you out, Sean. If you head over to our website, it all starts with a consultation. So go on over to our website, go speak with a lawyer, and at the very bottom here, we'll see Alicia, we'll see Chanel, and we'll see myself. Here at the very bottom, so we have 25-minute consults and a 50-minute consult. And the goal of the consultation is to talk about your strategy, your current status, how to extend your status, how to get into a job that can count for Canadian Experience class with your current work permit, your spouse's postgrad, your spouse's open work permit that's going to be based on your postgrad work permit, and most importantly, how to submit and prepare a correct application, how to avoid delays, how to make sure that all the documents are included inside of your application. So I'd love to help you, Sean. We also have a lot of content on our website about this extension, in particular the requirements and what to do. But listen, we'd love to speak with you. Head on over to our website, book a consult with me, and we can go from there. All right. Hen says, hello, I'm watching from Singapore. My wife and I were rejected for a study permit and an open work permit. We actually did a dual intent in our study plan, in our statement of purpose. However, grounds for refusal are purpose of visit and weak home ties, waiting for GCMS. So Hans, have you requested an ATIP from the Government of Canada? You can only request an ATIP if you're inside Canada or a Canadian citizen, or someone can request it on your behalf if they meet those requirements. As lawyers, we can also, as Canadian immigration lawyers, we can also request the ATIP notes. So the dual intent terms of statement of purpose, and weak home ties, this is something that we work really hard on when we prepare a study application in the letter of explanation, right? And essentially, you do need to demonstrate that at the end of your intended stay, you're going to return to your country. And if you're not able to, so we try to find, ways all the different ties, right? If you're young and you don't own a house, if you don't have children, it can be a little bit more difficult to prove that you have the home ties. The dual intent is a valid option and it exists clearly inside the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. However, generally speaking, when you're applying for the study permit, the dual intent, as I mentioned, is valid, but if you're going to be applying for the study permit, we generally recommend to just apply for the study permit and have obviously apply with the intention to go return to your country. Think about how the study permit, how the education in Canada is going to be able to increase your prospective employment when you return to Singapore and so on. Obviously, there's the postgraduate work permit that you can obtain, right? If you study at a designated learning institute, you can apply and get experience and apply to become a permanent resident. But at the time that you apply for your study permit, demonstrating strong ties is really important, and having this temporary intent that you're going to return, find a job in Singapore with your Canadian experience, and be able to demonstrate to the visa officer how this education is going to be able to assist you is a very strong and valid way to proceed. Another option, if you're just joining us, is to go on our website on the blog, and you can actually request a reconsideration of your visa permit. You can provide more information, explain why you believe that this was a valid option, right? You are able to submit the reconsideration right now, and when you get the GCMS notes, submit another reconsideration. Once you have the notes, you can clearly see what happened in your file. Submit the reconsideration. Another option as well, as we talked about, is a judicial review at the federal court to argue that you had a temporary intent and argue that you were allowed to come to Canada, you met the requirements to come to Canada. So those are various options for you. You can also just reapply. All right, 25 Appel Alok says, hello, my brother-in-law reside in Canada and he is PR. Could he show his financial documents and funds for my study visa? Let's go take a look at the study permit funds requirement. All right, get the right documents. So all the immigration programs have various proof of financial support, and let's get over here to the study permit proof of support. So you must prove that you can support yourself and the family members who come with you while you're in Canada. So proof of funds, right? So Canadian bank account, a GIC, a loan from a bank, right? Bank statements for the past 4 months. These are all things that you can provide that are going to help you. So here we have a letter from a person or school giving you money, right? So it's not a loan. So the loan is only from the bank. So here it's actually someone giving you money. So you're going to have to get a gift deed, a document that clearly states that your brother-in-law is giving you money for the purpose of your education. It is not going to be expecting a repayment. It is not a loan. It's going to be support from a person or school that's going to be giving you money. And then here we have the proof of funds, right? So if you paid with Canadian dollars, you have a scholarship and whatnot. But let's take a look here. So you actually need to, depending on how many people you have inside Canada, we're going to be accompanying you. Talking about children, spouse, and here we have the $10,000. So you have to pay your tuition, which could be from $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 Canadian, depending on the school, and then you also need to provide for the additional funds here of at least $10,000 if you're going alone. Province, and this again, we just talk about always outside Quebec. We don't deal with Quebec. Here it talks about a letter of explanation. So again, we strongly recommend to have letters of explanation explaining your financial situation, how you're getting this money, how you're getting this loan. So so there we go. Here's a brief overview. So yes, here's the answer to your question, but it has to be a person giving you money. It can't be a loan, and make sure that you meet the minimum funds. And I would strongly suggest have a gift deed. A gift deed is, again, a legal document that shows the money was given to you. We'd love to help you prepare. It's very common, but we prepare this for our clients, are the gift deeds. And then you can also explain, obviously, your statement of purpose, why you're coming to Canada and study. You can also try to prove how the study permit is going to help you in your home country, where you're coming to Canada to study, how it's going to improve your overall career. But this letter of explanation, you can also provide more explanation as to how your brother is, who's supporting you, who's giving you money for your experience. So there we go. Coda Samurai says, what is the best area to live in inside the Greater Toronto area? There's Greater Toronto area is is, a lot of communities, millions of people live in the GTA. We've talked about rural and northern immigration. We talked about Atlantic immigration. There's more than just the GTA. Obviously, being in Toronto is a world-class city with everything from diversity to entertainment. I love Toronto. I'm not from Toronto. I'm from Ottawa, but I do love Toronto, and I think it's quite subjective for the best area to live in. It depends on what you want in your life, what you're looking to do. The housing affordability is a factor, but also career prospects in Toronto. So a lot of factors to consider. And there we go. So it's just a follow-up question from Han. Said, hi, we asked your brother-in-law, who's a PR in Canada, for the ATIP. Once we receive the GCMS notes, we'll speak help from your firm. Hence, you can get sometimes very detailed GCMS notes. Sometimes there's not much inside the GCMS notes. So let's keep an eye on what's going to be happening. It takes up to, I think we're about 90 to 100 days right now for GCMS notes. However, the law says that they should be done within 30 days. So let's take a look here. The Access to Information Act is managed in Canada in part by the Information Commissioner of Canada, and you can actually see here that in some cases you're able to submit a complaint if the process has taken more than 5 days. So if you have a delayed ATIP, it's taking a very long time, more than 30 days, you might have a case of a deemed refusal, and you might be able to make a complaint to the Information Commissioner of Canada. Again, this is generic legal information. It's not legal advice, but do take a look here to see after 30 days. There might be valid reasons for the extension, right? They're very busy with COVID, but do not forget that this is an avenue if your ATIP process is taking too long. All right, so that says, I've already done my biometrics in 2018 when I applied for a study permit. Will I have to pay for it when submitting my PR application? How could I let IRCC know I've already done it? So let's take a look here. Let's flip over to the IRCC page of find out if you need to give biometrics. So generally speaking, you don't have to provide biometrics if you've already given biometrics in the past, right? So you applied here for your study permit, you provided it. Are they still valid? So let's actually use this tool to see whether or not they're still valid for biometrics. This is going to be, so there we go. So we actually have to enter our information here. So here's how you would actually check if your biometrics are still valid. I believe the general rule is they expire after 10 years. Yes, there we go, 10 years. So check here on this website to see whether they're still valid. Enter all the information, and then you're good to go. If you have the biometric like tab inside your account, if you can upload the previous biometric, if you received any documents of an appointment or anything, include it. You can also include in your letter of explanation, clearly state, on this date, I provided my biometrics, and you can verify to see whether or not they're still valid. So it's a fantastic tool. So here we're going to say yes. So you don't have to give biometrics. And if you applied for it, you don't need to give it again. And then again, you don't need to give it if they're still valid. So generally last 10 years or if they're still valid, but use this tool. You generally don't have to tell them it's still valid, right? They're going to see that you gave your biometrics and it's great. So there we go. Let's answer that question. All right. Can one give biometrics preemptively without any application pending? Interesting question. It depends on the program you're going to be applying to. So for permanent residents, you're going to be receiving a notification. Sorry, that my headset keeps turning off. If for permanent residents, if you're going to be applying for permanent residents, you're inside Canada, Canadian Experience class, they might request your biometrics. Inside Canada, if you're applying for a visitor visa or study permit, it's an excellent question. It really depends on the program you're going to be applying to. Follow the program instructions. Sometimes it's going to say, please wait for your letter. Sometimes it's going to say, please provide them at the time of your application. Whereas we see if they're already valid, you don't have to provide them. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I'm teleworking abroad. It is currently noon in the London, UK time. So if you're inside Toronto right now, it's 6 a.m. in Toronto. So I'm available early in the morning. early in the morning to speak with you if you're inside Canada. If you're outside Canada and you want to speak with a lawyer, more in your time zone when it better works for you, feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat with you to learn more about your case and how we can help you immigrate to Canada. Mark is away tomorrow, and so I'm going to be filling in for his live Q&A. I believe Mark might join us. I'm not too sure, but tomorrow at 11 a.m. Mountain Time is our next Q&A, and then we have Thursday at 11 a.m. Alicia and Mark do a live Q&A. Again, I think I'm going to be hosting it, but I will keep you posted. But join us 11 a.m. Mountain Time, Wednesday or Thursday. If you have questions, we'd love to speak with you. This concludes today's live Q&A. Thank you so much for joining me, and yeah, see you next time.